PDF handout that accompanies this set of lectures.
Here is another day that we had with the Wild Kitchen in Ireland, and another lovely spread on another trip that they put out for us. I mean, look at this plate of food, and look at just all these gorgeous colors, and look at all these seaweeds. One thing that I think is really important that we focus on when we're thinking about diet, la dieta, so our diet. And as everyone knows, we are what we eat. So we're going to be looking at that a bit, talking about basic digestion, so some of the different processes. And then, as we go through each of those processes, ways that you can support yourself herbally in those. And then we're going to look a bit at food as medicine, because obviously it's more than just about supporting your basic digestion. We also can utilize food as a way to go in and make different kinds of interventions, and that includes herbal medicine, of course. We'll take a break because it's one of the long classes today. So we have a half-hour break in the middle. So from 2 to 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7. We'll talk a little bit about convalescence care as well, that recovery period and ways to support there. And then go into specific digestive complaints. So we'll talk a little bit about heartburn, a little bit about constipation, diarrhea, all those fun things. So we're going to cover what we can, and hopefully cover the things that are practical that you can just bring into your life and bring into your work. Diet. I know that that's the name of the class, and I think that sometimes that word can really freak people out. I think it can, make us think about scarcity or deprivation. And I just wanted to dive into the etymology because I think that's sometimes helpful. And it's from the Greek. I will probably not pronounce this right. Dieta. And it means a way of life. And I think it's really helpful to consider that, to think about the root of that word. Because if we start to think about our diet and the things that we're eating as a way of living, we can actually start to realize this is a very life-affirming process and a very sacred moment. When we make food choices, or when we decide how we're going to eat, or with whom we're going to eat, or what time we're going to eat, these are rituals that we're creating. And so it can strengthen our bodies, it can strengthen our minds. But also, as the second half of the class, when we go more into more of a medicinal kind of focus, it can also deliver medicine when we're not feeling great. So on the left there is a picture from our tour that we do out west, the Wild Roots tours, and this is a lovely foraged meal. So our friends who are pictured here are wonderful wild foods chefs. I believe the website is wildkitchen.ie, but I'll have to look that up and I'll make sure it's available in the resources. And look at the spread. Look how gorgeous this is. And there's just gobs of foraged foods here, seaweeds and rose hips and crab apples and hawthorn berry ketchup, and just all kinds of really lovely things. Yum, it's making me hungry. So just kind of staying on that concept about diet, I wanted to share a little bit from Michael Pollan's book, In Defense of Food. Many of y'all might have read this before. It came out in, I think, 2008 or so, 2007, 2008. And when I read this book, it just really kind of blew me away by its simplicity. And he had these little kind of rules that he boiled certain things down to. And I know rules just sounds terrible, but hear him out. So, he said things like, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I can get with that. You are what you eat eats. This idea that, there is a difference between a wild salmon who's out there feeding on, other little fishies and algae and all kinds of stuff, and then a farm-raised salmon who might just be being fed grains. They're gonna produce different levels of omega-3 oils, for example. And so there's a lot to kind of thinking about that food chain. Don't eat anything incapable of rotting. If it's not going to rot, it's been pumped with some kinds of preservatives, and we don't necessarily want to be eating that. Shake the hand that feeds you, this idea of local, of being able to like know where your food is coming from, and also to appreciate and to give some love back to the people who are feeding us. Avoid food products containing ingredients that a third grader cannot pronounce. There's a lot of what Michael Moore used to call frankenfoods out there, things that have been really created. Soy protein isolate being one of those things, and that those can be kind of hard on our body, and our body doesn't always recognize them. Don't buy food where you buy your gasoline. Sometimes people don't have a choice with that. Sometimes that might be the closest place to find some food if you live in a food desert. And hopefully, though, there's support from the government to help some of those petrol stations and gasoline stations provide some healthier food. I mean, let's have bananas and apples and things like that at every gas station, please. If it came from a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't. This is that concept of, factory made food versus stuff that is vital and growing from the ground. Eat when you are hungry, not when you are bored. This one I love. If you're not hungry enough to eat an apple, then you're not hungry. So I have tested myself on this. I'll be like, oh, I really want this, popcorn or this piece of cake. I'm starving. And it's like, well, then eat an apple. And if not, if that's, if you're not wanting to eat the apple, then maybe you weren't actually hungry. Maybe you were just trying to, emotionally eat in that situation. Stop eating when you're full. Great plan. And this goes with maybe eating slowly enough that you actually realize when you're full. And then finally, break the rules once in a while. All things in moderation, including moderation, which I definitely appreciate that. Again, I think a lot of our problems with even talking about diets is that there's been so much rigidity around certain things that we just all get really tense. And as we'll talk about as we move through this class, tension and stress are not good forerunners to good digestion. The digest is the parasympathetic nervous system, right? So this is the rest and restore or rest and digest part of your nervous system versus, the fight or flight, which is the stress side of our nervous system. So definitely let's reduce the stress, y'all, and, try to be relaxed and try to find a little enjoyment in our diet. So this leads me now to a few things I like to think about when I'm thinking about basic diet. The first would be that, what is traditional where you live? This is super important as these foods, these dishes, they were usually developed to balance out climatary excesses. So for example, if you are, living in a place like Hotlanta and it's roasting, then yeah, okra, yeah, watermelon, yeah, all these things that are cooling, right? Now here we're having a heat wave in Dublin right now. And it's not normal. So I can't really look around for the traditional foods here for what to do in a heat wave, but luckily, because I'm from Atlanta, I know what to do. But what I can do is I can look around at the traditional foods and know how to support myself in a damp, chilly climate. So what is traditional where you are living? The next is chew your food. Stomachs don't have teeth. Stomachs have acid, it has a churning mechanism, it has other kinds of enzymes. So it has a way to really digest it. But if you haven't done that pre-digestion first, the chewing, your stomach's going to have a really hard time doing its part. And what usually ends up happening is indigestion. So chew your food. Get plenty of fluids, especially in Hotlanta. Super important. Eat the rainbow. Colors are anti-inflammatory. Those pigments actually represent anti-inflammatory compounds. So how lucky are we? The next, get cultured. So invite happy, healthy flora into your body by eating fermented foods. And these things are going to come up again and again as we go through this class. Things like the anti-inflammatories, what that's doing for us, the culture, the flora, why that's important. But there's a lot of different ways that you can bring fermented foods in. It could be yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi. I mean, you can pickle about anything, pickled okra. And then lastly, don't eat when angry or stressed or scared. Our digestion, this occurs during the rest and restore phase for our body. And we just talked about this a second ago. But in a nutshell, when you're stressed out, the energy and the blood is directed away from the digestive system. So even if you had been eating, that's all going to stop. And everything gets directed out to your large muscles, right? So that way you can run away from the saber-toothed tiger. And so it's the total opposite of what you're looking for when you want to promote good digestion. So you want to eat when you're relaxed, and you want to eat with friends and loved ones. And that's when you're going to have a really good meal. Oh, and this is last but not least, use herbs. So our kitchen cabinets are just incredible medicinal apothecaries. The herbs that are in there are there for a reason. They are super potent and super powerful. And that's why they have such places of honor. That's why we have them, in our homes. We have invited them into our homes. So here's a picture of the little tiny urban garlic shakers that we were giving out during COVID in our care packs, because we're like, gosh, how can we support folks? And food is a way to safely support people when you haven't really met them face to face, but you're trying to, support their health. So we ground everything up super fine and sifted it and reground it so it was really fine. That way you could sprinkle it on anything and you wouldn't be like munching on a big leaf of rosemary, for example. So this was herbs de Provence and garlic powder blended together that people could sprinkle, and we really hoped would give them the antimicrobial support, the respiratory support, the immuno support that they would be needing. And also stress support. I mean, rosemary, lavender, basil, these are great for mental health as well. So our culinary herbs are brilliant. And, if that's all you have to work with, you are a lucky person indeed. So this little slide here is just a chance for me to ask y'all, in your own time to think about this for yourself. What's important for you? Everyone is different strokes for different folks. So everybody's got the things that work for them and the things that don't work for them. And it's really important that we're just honest with ourselves sometimes and recognize it, no matter how much we might like a certain thing. Like if we like eating, French fries at midnight, but then we get indigestion and heartburn when we're sleeping, maybe we should look at that and go, well, that doesn't make me feel my best. So maybe I can shift that, have those French fries earlier in the day, maybe not have them as often, maybe find other things that I can enjoy that don't give me heartburn. So just think about that. And the worksheet, again, in the chat box is the link for that worksheet. There's going to be a little place on that worksheet as well for you to kind of fill those things in. So here's my friend and her little girl, Freddie, eating a little bit. And that's what we're about to talk about now. We're going to dive into some digestion basics.